Hello everyone, welcome back to Mad Bull Amazing Movie Recap. Today we are going to be talking about a movie titled The Offering. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy this amazing recap. The movie begins in an apartment with a man, Yosili, performing a sacred rite while looking extremely distressed and scared. But he was interrupted by the emergence of an old woman telling him to stop chanting. Knowing that it's not the person he once knew, he refused to adhere to her request. Then a pale-looking young girl appeared to him and told him to feed her. But he also didn't heed her request. He invited the entity into his body and stabbed himself, sealing the entity in his body. In Borough Park, Brooklyn, New York, we meet a couple, Arthur and his pregnant wife, Claire, who took a trip to Brooklyn to visit Arthur's aging father, Saul, who runs a Jewish funeral house in a Hasidic community. Arthur hasn't seen his father in many years because his father didn't approve of his marriage to a non-Jewish woman. Saul regrets his former attitude and is thrilled to reunite with Arthur. He warmly welcomes Claire into the family. But what Saul doesn't know is that Arthur is there in the hopes that his father can help him out of debt by offering his house as collateral to the bank. That night, while on the dining table, Arthur leaves to answer a phone call, leaving Saul and Claire to continue the conversation. Saul tells Claire about Sarah Schindel, whose burial procession is currently going on. Saul receives a phone call from his colleague, Hamish, about a new body arriving to the morgue downstairs. Arthur helps his father, Saul, to prepare Yosili's body for burial and discovers a knife and a shiny amulet around his neck. Arthur removes the knife and accidentally drops the amulet, breaks it, and hides the pieces from his father to avoid criticism. But of course, Arthur breaking the amulet releases the demon from its prison, and all sorts of weird things and noises start happening. Saul finds the knife and suspects maybe a demon was trapped inside Yosili's body. While Saul was studying the murder weapon, he found glyphs on it and decided to call a Kabbalist, aka someone who believes in a particular variety of Jewish mysticism. He was told that the glyphs dates back to the time of Abraham, when God asked him to sacrifice his son, Isaac, in order to seal a demon. He was told that what he saw was probably a sham and that for it to be real, there must be an amulet serving as the seal. Saul investigates the body once more, but he finds no pendant or amulet, and so he decided to end his suspicions. While Claire was taking a photograph of a food setting on the dining table, she saw the shadow of a hand and a little girl's legs hiding behind the coat hanger through her camera. It spooked her, and she immediately dropped her camera on the floor. Hamish answered Arthur's phone call while waiting in the car for Arthur and Saul, who were still settling Sarah Schindler's funeral arrangements. He found out about the deal Arthur made with the bank in order to settle his debt. Later that night, while Saul and Claire were talking about the souls of those whose funerals are being arranged by Saul, Hamish walks in with the document containing the contract made by Arthur in order to leverage his father's house to the bank. This event shocks both Saul and Claire, while Arthur went upstairs packing his bag and Claire's with the intention of leaving. But he was convinced by Claire to seek Saul's forgiveness. But Arthur opts out when he saw Saul downstairs taking a pill while crying. Later that night, Saul heard a strange noise down at the morgue while going through the document. He saw the shape of a strange entity, which scared him so much that he ran to the exit door, but unfortunately it was locked up, trapping him there. Arthur wakes up in the morning but couldn't find his father. He went down to the morgue to see if he's there, but instead he saw the workers surrounding a dead body, which he discovered was his father, Saul. A broken-hearted Hamish blames Arthur for Saul's death, while handing him the document containing the signature of Saul. Apparently, Saul signed the document before his death last night. The next day, Arthur was prepared according to the Jewish tradition to mourn his father. Arthur, being possessed by the demon, drew a demonic symbol on the chair and then ran upstairs. Claire saw the physical manifestation of Sarah Schindler, which scared her silly while the guests were still mourning in the house. Later that night, Arthur, possessed by the demon, drew a satanic sigil downstairs and later got himself. The next day, the Jewish burial committee came over to take the body of Yosila but found out that the man's documents are all messed up, which leads them to ask about Hamish, but they found out that Hamish has already left the house. The committee refuses to proceed with Yosila's funeral rites without the signature of any of his relatives. Refusing to call Hamish, Arthur drove to the man's apartment in hopes of finding the man's living relatives. But instead, he discovered a shocking secret, which is a videotape hidden under the floor on a drawn demonic sigil. The videotape contains the truth about Sarah Schindler's murder. Apparently, the old man wanted to summon an angel of life from heaven by using Sarah as an offering, but instead, he summoned a demon named Abazu. The demon killed the little girl, Sarah. While Arthur is watching the video, a strange woman, claiming to be the wife of the old man, Yosila, arrived at the funeral home demanding from Claire to see the old man's body. Claire had no choice but to call Arthur in hopes of knowing what to do. But before Arthur could tell her that the woman in question is a fraud, the phone's signal was disrupted. Without much of a choice, Claire had to bring her down to the morgue to see the old man. But on getting there, Claire started feeling a mysterious pain in her stomach, which the strange woman used to deceive her into destroying the seal on the pendant, therefore fully releasing the demon. Concerned for her life, Claire ran upstairs and discovered that the whole house has turned into a mess. She tried to leave the house, but the front door wouldn't budge. Scared, she hid under the dining table but was captured by the demon. Arthur, on getting back to the house, called out to Claire, but no one answered. He went to the living room where he meets face to face with the demon in the form of Sarah. He demands for his wife, which the demon gladly provided for him. He tried taking her out of the house, but it proved to be futile. The demon demanded for a sacrifice in the form of a child in order to free him, but he outrightly refuses. Having no other choice, Arthur called Hamish for help. Hamish, after comprehending the situation, called for a Kabbalist. The Kabbalist identifies the pentagram on the floor of the house. The trio also went down to the morgue. On getting there, they discovered the burnt corpse of the old man, Yosila. While the Kabbalist repairs the amulet, he tells them about the demon, that the demon, Abazu, has been inflicting misery and miscarriage to people, forcing the greedy and the desperate to feed it. That was until God intervened by calling upon Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac, forever binding Abazu to Isaac. It was like that until the old man, Yosil, brought it back to life. The Kabbalist instructed them to use the old man's ash to form a protective circle where the sacrifice will be done. One of them has to take the role of being the sacrifice, which Arthur gladly accepted in order to save his wife and unborn child. The trio was interrupted by the demon, which instantly killed the Kabbalist. Hamish and Arthur had to continue the sacred rite without the Kabbalist, but midway, Arthur saw the physical manifestation of his father, Saul, trying to persuade him to do what the demon wants, but thankfully, Hamish brought him back to reality, telling him not to leave the circle no matter what. Hamish was brutally beaten up and was taken away by the demon, leaving his condition unknown. The demon used Claire to draw Arthur away from the circle, leaving him totally defenseless. Arthur, finding his courage, finished the summoning chants and forced the demon into his body. Picking up the sacred knife with great difficulty, Arthur tried to complete the ritual by stabbing himself. But the knife was pushed out of his hands by the demon. Arthur, being at his wit's end, fell face flat on the floor. Hamish, who is apparently not quite dead yet, stumbles forward with the knife in hand. Arthur begs Hamish to stab him, and after some hesitation, Hamish stabbed him. As Arthur lies dying on the floor, Hamish leans over and says, "You should have stayed in the circle." Arthur looks over and sees that he dropped the pendant outside of the circle, meaning he wasn't wearing it when he stabbed himself. He also looks over and sees the real Hamish's body dead on the floor, meaning that the Hamish standing in front of him, apparently, is the demon. The demon, Heimish, gets up and walks away, and Arthur dies. Claire wakes up suddenly in the house. She sees Arthur and steps forward to greet him, unknowingly stepping right into the demonic pentagram. Arthur asks about the baby, and when Claire says the baby is fine, Arthur replies, "Good," in a demonic voice. In other words, it's not Arthur, but the demon itself. The demon suddenly attacked Claire, and with that, the movie ends. Thank you for watching this amazing movie recap, and I hope you can support me in creating more videos by hitting the thumbs up and pressing the subscription button below. Stay tuned for more amazing videos.